are swallowing a pill that you think is building a fortress around your bones. But in reality, it might be turning your cardiovascular system into limestone. For decades, we've been told a simple story. Bones are made of calcium. If you don't want to break a hip when you're 70, take more calcium. It sounds logical. It sounds safe. But there is a terrifying phenomenon in modern medicine known as the calcium paradox. Here is the brutal reality. In countries with the highest calcium intake, where people drink the most milk and pop the most supplements, we also see the highest rates of osteoporosis. But that's not even the worst part. When we look at the autopsy data of patients who faithfully took their calcium supplements for years, we often don't find that extra mineral in their skeletal matrix. We find it lining their coronary arteries. We find it turning flexible, healthy blood vessels into stiff, brittle pipes. Imagine your arteries are supposed to be like elastic rubber hoses, expanding and contracting with every beat of your heart. When you take calcium the wrong way, incorrectly, without the specific traffic controllers we are going to discuss today, that calcium precipitates out of your blood and settles in your soft tissues. It plaquifies, it hardens, it feels like your heart is trying to pump blood through a concrete tunnel. This drives up your blood pressure, forces your heart to work overtime, and drastically increases your risk of the very thing you're trying to avoid, a catastrophic structural failure. You are trying to prevent a fracture, but you are inadvertently engineering a heart attack. But it doesn't have to be this way. The human body, your human OS, has a very specific encoded mechanism for directing minerals. Today, I am going to show you how to hijack that system. I'm going to give you the exact protocol to strip that dangerous calcium out of your arteries and force it back into your bones, where it belongs. We are going to reverse the calcification process. However, to do this, we first have to dismantle a lie you've been told since kindergarten. It involves a specific health food you probably have in your fridge right now, which is actually accelerating your aging process. We need to address the billion-dollar elephant in the room. For 50 years, the Got Milk campaigns and the USDA food pyramid have drilled a singular command into our collective consciousness. Drink your milk, build strong bones. We equated dairy with density. We assumed that if we ingested more of the raw material, the body would automatically use it to repair the structure. This is the construction site fallacy. Imagine a construction site where you dump thousands of tons of steel beams and concrete, that's the calcium, onto the lot. But you didn't hire any architects or construction workers to actually assemble them. What happens? You don't get a skyscraper. You get a pile of rubble that blocks the roads and destroys the infrastructure. That is exactly what is happening inside your blood vessels when you follow the standard advice of taking 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams of elemental calcium daily. Most of the cheap supplements sitting on pharmacy shelves are calcium carbonate. Let's call it what it really is: chalk. It is limestone. It is rock. When you swallow that high-dose rock, you create a massive, unnatural spike in your blood calcium levels. Your body, your human OS, is incredibly smart. It knows that high calcium levels in the blood can cause arrhythmias and stop your heart. So it panics. It tries to get that calcium out of the bloodstream as fast as humanly possible. Since it lacks the chemical instructions to move it into the bone, we'll get to those instructions in a moment, it shoves the calcium into the nearest available soft tissue. It embeds it into your arterial walls. It forces it into your joints, causing stiffness. It crystallizes it in your kidneys, forming stones that feel like passing shards of glass. And here is where the tragedy lies. It is not your fault that you've been doing this. You were told this was insurance for your future. You were told that if you didn't drink 3 glasses of milk a day, you were failing your body. But the guidelines were based on primitive science that only looked at intake, not utilization. They ignored the biological fact that calcium is a dumb mineral. It has no steering wheel. It goes where the gradient takes it, or where inflammation invites it. So if you have been dutifully taking your calcium chews and drinking your fortified orange juice, but your joints still ache and your bone density scans aren't improving, you're not crazy. You were just given half the code. You have the bricks, but you don't have the masons. To fix this, we have to stop treating the body like a bucket we just need to fill up. We have to treat it like a biological software system that requires specific activation keys. There is a specific hormonal traffic cop that directs calcium traffic, telling it, no, do not park in the heart, go to the hip. Most people are completely deficient in the fuel that runs this traffic cop. Without it, your calcium is driving blind. Let's turn the lights on. Before we get into the exact molecules you need, I have a question for you. I want you to go down to the comments section right now and type yes or no. Here is the question. Have you ever had a calcium score test, a CAC scan, done on your heart? If you haven't, or if you don't know what that is, you are flying blind regarding your heart attack risk. Let me know in the comments below. Now let's unlock the system. If calcium is the brick and your body is the construction site, we have been missing the 2 most critical workers. The first is the general contractor, and the second is the logistics manager. In medical terms, we call them vitamin D3 and vitamin K2. You have likely heard of vitamin D. You might even take it. But taking vitamin D without vitamin K2 is like hiring a contractor who orders materials but never tells the trucks where to deliver them. Here is the exact biological mechanism of how this works within your human OS. When you ingest vitamin D3, its primary job is absorption. It goes to your gut and opens the gates. It says, okay, let all that calcium in. It increases the level of calcium in your bloodstream effectively. But remember Chapter 2, high calcium in the blood is dangerous if it doesn't move. Vitamin D3 cannot tell the calcium where to go. It just opens the door. This is where vitamin K2 enters the chat. Vitamin K2 is the steering wheel. It is the GPS. It is the logistics manager. K2 functions by activating a specific set of proteins that are dormant in your body. Think of these proteins as sleeping employees. Without K2, they are asleep on the job. The first protein is called Osteocalcin. When K2 wakes up Osteocalcin, this protein grabs the calcium from the blood and physically cements it into the bone matrix. It locks it in. This is how you get strong bones. The second protein is even more critical for your heart. It is called Matrix Gla Protein, or MGP. Think of MGP as a street sweeper for your arteries. When activated by K2, MGP patrols your blood vessels. It finds calcium deposits that are starting to form on your arterial walls, those early stages of plaque that lead to a heart attack, and it scrubs them off. It forbids calcium from settling in soft tissue. So, here's the equation you must memorize. Vitamin D3 plus calcium equals calcium in the blood, which is potential danger. Vitamin D3 plus K2 plus calcium equals calcium in the bone, which is optimal health. Most of the modern world is deficient in K2 because we removed it from our food supply. We stopped eating organ meats. We stopped eating fermented foods. We started eating grain-fed beef instead of grass-fed beef. We effectively fired the logistics manager, but kept ordering the bricks. You don't have a calcium deficiency. You have a distribution problem. But knowing what to take isn't enough. The dosage, the form, and the timing matter more than the supplement itself. There are two different types of K2, and if you take the wrong one, it leaves your body before it can even reach your bones. Confidently, we are going to break down the specific chemical pathways and the exact forms you need to look for on the bottle label in the next chapter. We are about to get into the specific biochemistry of your arterial walls. This is the information that separates the casual health enthusiast from the biohacker. But before we break down the different forms of K2, I have a small favor. If you want to stop guessing about your health and start engineering it, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. I am currently writing a deep dive guide on the magnesium myth, explaining why your blood tests for magnesium are almost always wrong. I don't want you to miss it. Now, let's get back to the lab. When you go to the health food store to buy vitamin K2, you are going to face a confusing shelf. You will see K2MK4, K2MK7, and various blends. If you pick the wrong one, you are essentially throwing your money into the toilet, literally, because it will be excreted before your body can use it. To understand why, we have to look at the three critical pathways of calcium transport. Pathway 1, the activation. This is the most important medical concept in this video. Remember those proteins we talked about? Osteocalcin for bones and Matrix Gla Protein for arteries. When your body creates them, they are born inactive. Under a microscope, they look like a hand without fingers. They are smooth. They cannot grab anything. In medical terms, they are undercarboxylated. Vitamin K2 performs a chemical process called carboxylation. Think of this as adding Velcro or claws to that smooth hand. Without K2, the protein bumps into calcium, slips off, and the calcium keeps floating down the bloodstream until it gets stuck in an arterial plaque. With K2, the protein grows claws. It physically grabs the calcium ion, locks it tight, and carries it to the bone bank. If you have high calcium but low K2, your blood is full of fingerless hands that can't do their job. Pathway 2, the duration. This is where the supplement industry trips you up. MK4 is the synthetic form found in most cheap multivitamins. It has a biological half-life of about 1 to 2 hours. That means if you take it at 8 a.m., by 10 a.m., it is virtually gone from your system. Unless you plan on popping a pill every 3 hours, MK4 leaves your body unprotected for the majority of the day. MK7, however, is derived from the fermentation process. It has a half-life of 72 hours. It builds up a steady therapeutic baseline. It is constantly patrolling your arteries, carboxylating those proteins, and ensuring that no calcium settles where it shouldn't. For reversing arterial calcification, MK7 is the superior weapon. Pathway 3, the ignition switch. There is a third player in this trinity that we haven't touched on yet, but without it, the whole system crashes. Deep to slow, magnesium. Here is the mechanism. You take vitamin D3 to absorb calcium, but vitamin D3 is biologically inert when you swallow it. It has to be converted by your liver and kidneys into its active hormonal form. This conversion process is magnesium dependent. If you are deficient in magnesium, and 80% of you watching this are, you can take all the vitamin D in the world, but it won't activate. It will just store up in your fat tissue. Even worse, taking high doses of vitamin D burns up your magnesium reserves. This leads to that wired but tired anxiety feeling many people get when they start a D supplement. So the complete human OS formula isn't just calcium. In fact, we rarely need to supplement calcium itself because it's abundant in food. The formula is magnesium, the ignition, vitamin D3, the gatekeeper, vitamin K2 MK7, the guide. If you remove one leg of this stool, the structure collapses. Now that you understand the mechanics, the claws, the timing, and the ignition, we need to talk about numbers. How much, when, and in what ratio. Because if you get the ratio wrong, you can actually deplete your other minerals. Let's turn this science into a strict, step-by-step protocol you can start tomorrow morning.
This is the part of the video where you need to take a screenshot or get a pen. We're going to translate all that complex biochemistry into a simple daily routine. Standard disclaimer: I am a guide, but I am not your doctor. This protocol is powerful, so if you are on blood thinners like warfarin or Coumadin, you must consult your physician before adding vitamin K. It directly affects blood clotting. For everyone else, here is the decalcification protocol. Step 1. The golden ratio of D3 and K2. The most common question I get is, how much? The answer depends on your blood levels, but for the vast majority of adults, we look for a maintenance ratio. For every 5,000 to 10,000 IU of vitamin D3 you take, you should pair it with at least 100 micrograms of vitamin K2 MK7. The rookie mistake: taking a multivitamin with 400 IU of vitamin D. That is a drop in the ocean. It's barely enough to prevent rickets, let alone optimize your immune system or bone density. The pro move? Look for a liposomal liquid formula or a soft gel that combines D3 and K2 in the same capsule. Why? Because they're both fat-soluble vitamins. They need fat to be absorbed. If you take a dry tablet with a black coffee in the morning, you're flushing 90% of it away. Step 2. The magnesium check. You cannot run this protocol without magnesium. But do not buy magnesium oxide. That is cheap filler. It has almost zero absorption rate, and it will just send you running to the bathroom. You need chelated forms. Magnesium glycinate, best for relaxation and sleep. Magnesium malate, best for muscle pain and energy. Magnesium threonate, the only form that crosses the blood-brain barrier for cognitive health. The protocol? Take 400 milligrams of magnesium glycinate about 1 hour before bed. This does double duty. It activates the enzymes needed for your D3 metabolism while you sleep, and it relaxes your arterial walls, lowering your blood pressure naturally overnight. Step 3. Stop supplementing calcium. This is controversial, but the data supports it. Unless you have a specific medical condition or a doctor's direct order, stop taking standalone calcium supplements. Instead, get your calcium from food. Food-based calcium is released slowly. It doesn't spike your blood levels like a supplement does, and it comes packaged with its own cofactors. Top tier? Sardines with bones, leafy greens like collards and spinach, and fermented dairy like kefir or yogurt. The K2 superfood? If you're brave, eat natto. It's a Japanese fermented soybean dish. It smells like old socks and has the texture of slime, but a single tablespoon contains more natural K2 than an entire bottle of supplements. If you can't stomach that, stick to hard cheeses like Gouda or Brie, or just take the MK7 supplement. Step 4. The timing. Timing isn't everything, but it's close. Morning with breakfast. Take your D3 and K2. Vitamin D suppresses melatonin, your sleep hormone. Taking it at night can ruin your sleep. Take it with a meal that has healthy fats, eggs, avocado, olive oil, to ensure absorption. Evening, before bed, take your magnesium. This winds the system down and prepares the liver for the conversion work it does at night. Summary of the protocol. Morning, 5,000 IU D3 plus 100 micrograms of K2, taken with fat. Evening, 400 milligrams of magnesium glycinate. Diet, eliminate fortified processed foods. Increase leafy greens and fermented foods. This is not a quick fix. You won't feel the difference in an hour, but over 3 to 6 months, this protocol begins to shift the chemistry of your blood. It signals the body to stop patching the walls with limestone and start rebuilding the frame. Now you have the protocol, but there is one final piece of the puzzle. Even if you get your calcium perfect, there's an environmental factor, something you're exposed to every single day that is silently stripping minerals out of your bones faster than you can put them back in. Let's recap the human OS strategy for arterial protection. We covered a lot of ground, so here is the rapid-fire summary to lock it into your memory. The calcium paradox. Taking calcium supplements without the right instructions doesn't build bones. It calcifies arteries. You are building a statue, not a skeleton. The construction crew. Calcium is the brick, but vitamin D is the gatekeeper, and vitamin K2 is the architect. You cannot build without the whole crew. The form matters. Avoid synthetic K2, MK4, that disappears in hours. Use vitamin K2 MK7 to protect your arteries 24/7. The ignition. None of this works without magnesium. It is the battery that powers the entire enzyme system. The protocol. Stop eating chalk. Eat calcium-rich foods and supplement the regulators, D3, K2, magnesium, not the raw material. If you implement this, you are effectively upgrading your body's software. You are telling your biology to stop storing minerals in your heart valves and start packing them into your skeletal matrix where they belong. However, even the perfect protocol can fail if your body is constantly leaking minerals. Remember that environmental factor I mentioned? The one stripping your bones? It's cortisol. You can take all the vitamin K2 in the world, but if your stress hormones are chronically high, they act like a corrosive acid, dissolving bone density to fuel your fight or flight response. It is the invisible leak in the bucket we just tried to fill. To fix that, you need to understand how to toggle your nervous system out of that stress state. Confidently, I have broken down the exact mechanism and the simple breathing trick that lowers cortisol by 23% in minutes in this video right here, the cortisol switch, how to turn off aging. Click that video now. You have the bricks. Now let's stop the leak. I'll see you there.